Hey class, Mr. Bassler here. Today we're going to be talking about point slope form. We're going to be taking notes from our binder on page 157. All right, so let's go ahead and follow along and write down what I write down here. And let's talk about point slope form. All right, we're going to look at where it came from, the key information of point slope form, as well as graphing equations in point slope form. All right, so let's see, how do we get point slope form? Well, it comes from that slope formula. Right, and our slope formula says y equals, or m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, and now we're going to cross multiply this. So when we cross multiply, right, we can kind of make this a fraction here on our left side. So we're going to get our y2 minus y1 times 1. Well, that just gives me y2 minus y1. Right, so that's going to be on my left side here, and that's going to be equal to, now I'm going to cross multiply with my m times x2 minus x1. Well, that's going to look like this, right? M times x2 minus x1. All right, if this looks familiar to you, great, right? This is our point slope form, right? Our formal way we're going to write point slope form is going to be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Right, where my x1 comma y1 is an ordered pair. So my x1 comma y1 is that ordered pair. And my m, of course, is for the slope. Right? We know that m was from our slope intercept form. All right, so right, point slope form is going to be our second form of a linear equation that we're going to talk about. There's some benefits from this form here, where you can kind of easily identify the slope as well as a y-intercept in this form. Right, it's kind of right there for you to see. And also, right, sometimes if our y-intercept is off our graph, like we won't be able to graph it. But if we have a point on the graph and if it's point slope form, then we could easily go ahead and graph our equation. All right, so that's kind of where it came from and kind of the key information of point slope form here. So before we start graphing, right, we have to make sure that we can identify that slope as well as a point on the line here. So in example 1, we have a couple different examples here, A, B, and C, right? We're asked to kind of identify that slope and the point. All right, well, for me, the easiest one or the most obvious of those two key information here is going to be that slope, right? My m value, because that's going to be that number outside of my parentheses on the right side of the equation there. Right? So in this example A here, right, my m, or my slope, is going to be 3. All right, and then the other thing I need to find is that point, right? So my point, again, is an x comma y ordered pair. And it's going to be, right, x goes with x and y goes with y, right? So we can look at our equation above here, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Right? As long as my equation is written like the form, right, then our numbers are going to be exactly what you see, right? X minus x1, and I have x minus 4. Therefore, my x1 value is 4. I'm going to have the same thing on my left side here, right? Y minus 2. Well, my form is y minus y1, so therefore my y1 value is also positive 2. So the slope of that is 3, and my point is 4, 2. All right, now let's go ahead and look at example B here. All right, my equation on B is y minus 5 equals negative, parentheses, x plus 6. All right, so again, let's identify that slope first, right? It's that number in front of my parentheses. Oh, wait, I don't have a number. Oh, wait a second, I do have a number, right? That's my invisible 1. And if there's a negative sign out there, right, that means my slope is negative 1. All right, now for my point. Again, my point is an x comma y. All right, so I have to go back to my form, right? My form is x minus x1. But in my equation, I see an x plus 6, all right? Well, my form and my equation don't match up, right? I need my equation to be x minus my x1. Well, yeah, that's right. Minus a negative will make it positive, right? So this is really saying it's x minus a negative 6 here. Right, so let me kind of clean that up here. So x minus a negative 6 So therefore, my x value is really a negative 6. Right, again, my equation needs to match my form in order for me to see that x and y point. And then on my left side, right, I got y minus 5. So therefore, my y1 value is going to be a positive 5, right, because it matches my form of y minus y1. So my point is negative 6, comma 5. All right, and letter C here, right, again, we have an equation of y plus 8 equals 3/5 times x minus 1. All right, so why don't we go ahead and find that slope first. Hopefully you got 3/5 as your slope. All right, and now we're going to look at this point. Right, again, point is an x comma y. So then I'm going to look at my equation. I'm going to remind myself of the form, right? It's x minus x1. Well, it's in the correct form. So therefore, my x value is a positive 3. And now when I look at my y value, right, it's y plus 8. Well, my form is y minus y1, right? So to get that plus 8, right, that's really minus a negative 8 here. So then my y1 value is really negative 8. All right, now some students, say that you kind of think of it as opposite of what it looks, right? It's not really opposite, right, because of the form, but if that kind of helps you remember it, right, you can kind of think of it that way, right, that it's minus or it's opposite of what it looks like. All right, so now let's look at the steps to graph. All right, so step 1 says to identify the point, right, our x1, y1, and the slope of the line. Right, so our equation here is y plus 4 equals 1/2 times x minus 1. Well, again, let's start out with finding that slope, right? That slope is going to be that number outside of my parentheses, kind of attached to that x, right? So my m, or my slope, is 1/2. All right, so now for my point. Right, again, it's x comma y. So I'm going to look for my x value first, right? X minus 1, so that's in the correct form, right? So my x value is positive 1. Right, now for my y, right, it says y plus 4, right? So now if I think opposite, right, it's going to be a negative 4 here for my y value. Right? But really, it's y minus negative 4 that makes it look like y plus 4. All right, so first step, right, identify your point and your slope. Perfect, check, done. Step 2 says to plot the point that corresponds to the point. All right, well, our point is 1 comma negative 4, right? So I need to go ahead and plot that first, right? Just like in slope-intercept form, you have to start with a point. And in this case, my point is that x comma y, which is 1 comma negative 4. So I'm going to go 1 to the right, and I'm going to go 4 down. And I'm going to go ahead and plot my 1 comma negative 4. All right, now step 3 says that from that point, we're going to, on the line, we're going to use rise over run to get our second point, right? Because our slope is rise over run. And in this equation, right, our slope is 1/2. So now we're ready to move with our slope, right? Our m, we can think of it as moving now. We're going to rise up 1 and run 2 to the right. And we're going to go ahead and get our second point. And now that we have our 2 points, we can go ahead and graph our line here. Perfect. All right, so now let's just look at a couple more examples here. And I think that'll be enough for today, right? Because we're going to get plenty of practice in class. All right, so if we go on to the next page here, right, we're going to look at example 2, letter A. So that says our equation is y minus 2 equals 3 times x minus 1. All right, so the first things first is we always have to identify our slope and our point, our key information. All right, so in this case, my slope is 3. All right, and if you remember in class, right, I also talked about sometimes it might be helpful to write it as a fraction, which is 3/1. And now for our point, right, this is my x comma y. Right, so my x value is 1, right, because it's in the correct form of x minus x1. And my y value is going to be positive 2. All right, so now again, the graph, I always start with a point, right? I got a starting point, and that is going to be 1 comma 2. So 1 on my right and 2 up is going to be where I'm going to plot my point. And now from that point, I'm going to use my slope of 3/1 to plot my second point, right? So I'm going to rise up 3, and I'm going to run 1 to the right. I'm going to plot my second point, and now that I have my 2 points, I'm ready to graph. So I'm going to connect those 2 points and make my line, right? I'm going to put a couple arrows on my lines here because my lines go on forever. All right, let's just do one more together here. All right, and like I said, we'll get plenty of practice in class. All right, so the last one we're going to do is 2c here, right? My equation is y minus 1 equals -3 times x plus 6. All right, so first, again, always identify your slope and your point. So my slope is -3, right? Or if you want to write it as -3/1. And now for my point, right? Again, my point is an x comma y. Right, so I see x plus 6, right? Again, that's not written in the correct form, right? It has to be x minus my x1. So minus a negative will give me that positive, right? So really, this is a -6 for my x value here. And then for my y, right, y minus 1. So then my y value is at +1. All right, so now I'm ready to plot the point here of -6 comma 1. That means I'm going to go 6 left here on my x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go up 1. So it should be right here. -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up 1. So I plot my point first, and now I'm going to use my slope to get that second point. And my slope, in this case, it's -3/1. So my rise is actually going to be going down 3 units. So 1, 2, 3, and 1 over to the right. So there's my second point for my slope. And now I can go ahead and connect those 2 points. And I should be having a line that's going down from left to right because this is a negative slope. All right, so hopefully this makes a little sense, a little warm up for when we take some more notes and do some more practice problems in class.